Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. I wasn't that amazing as a trigonometry teacher, as it turned out.
What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood.
That's not for you, Brenda, on a Tuesday afternoon.
With Margaret Ables
and Amy Wilson.
If I did one of those things for 8 seconds, I would not be able to get out of bed.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to.
We're all done. We're all done with that silliness.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. This week, we are coming in hot with a new study that just came out on mothers' mental health. Spoiler alert, it's not great.
Guys, it's not amazing. I hate to tell you. It's not going great.
We're not doing great, but being able to quantify this and know this means we can maybe do something about it. So I look forward to discussing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more as I continue to parent and look back on parenting, that an emphasis on one's own mental health is very, very central to parenting in a way that I think I got, but I'm now like, okay, we really have to be careful about our mental health because it's hard being a parent.
Yeah, it's the whole game. It's not just part of the game. It's the whole game. First, I want to give you a really good mailbag, though.
Oh, love it.
Oh, yes. Wait a minute. Time for mailbag. Wait. Check the mailbag. Amy and Margaret, look at...
Our mailbag is from Casey in the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/What Fresh Hellcast. I get it right, Amy?
That's right.
Casey says, I have been a listener since the beginning, ! I am a pediatric PA, and I recommend your podcast every day to parents. I love how you've covered many topics, and I can refer them to specific episodes. Thanks for being so entertaining and fun to listen to, while also being so helpful. Thank you, Casey.
That's so nice. Thank you. I love that we're pediatrician PA recommended.
Yes, approved.
We're basically healthcare.
4 out of 5 doctors recommend the What Fresh Hell podcast.
We're FSA deductible. You could do like What Fresh Hell Plus and write it off.
That's not true. Don't do that.
No, that's not. I made that up. I did love, though, that Casey said she recommends specific episodes. You can always go to whatfreshhellpodcast.com. And if you go, there's a little magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner. And if you click on that and you type in, I don't know, toddlers or mental health or whatever, you're going to see out of our 900 episodes at this point, you can very easily search for the topics you're interested in. And I loved that Casey brought that to our attention.
You can and you should, friends.
All right. You might remember back in October 2024, Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General of the U.S. at the time, he put out a study called Parents Under Pressure, and he called the mental health of parents an urgent public health issue at that time.
Right. And we talked about it on the podcast.
Did. Yeah. I'll link to that in the show notes. We did a whole episode on that study and what it was saying. And it was, a big deal. He underlined burnout, that parents were exhausted, burned out, perpetually behind. He kind of underlined the culture of catching up and hyper-parenting as maybe being a cause, but basically just said, this is a big problem, you guys. And he's not Surgeon General anymore. So it was kind of, let's look into this. Goodbye, everybody. So
right.
Parental stress is getting worse. So some scientists said, okay, let's look into this. So there was a new study of existing data. It came out in JAMA. I guess you say JAMA. It's JAMA, Internal Medicine. They publish scientific studies every week, but I don't know if you say like JAMA or if you call it JAMA. Or
JAMA?
Mamma Jamma. I don't know.
Who knows?
It's very scientific though. So Jamie Daw, she's a professor of health management at Columbia University and a bunch of other people. They had this data. It has been being collected for the last 9 years. It started to be collected in 2016, and the years they're looking at are 2016 to 2023 in this study. And what was different about it was that she felt like that there had never been a look at the mental health in the U.S. of all mothers. Like not just 3 months after the baby's born, not just a child with special needs, not just a thin slice, but all
how we
mothers.
all doing.
How we all doing. So there's something called the National Survey of Mental Health that a lot of people already take every year. And so they looked specifically at 200,000 mothers who they identified as parents, biological, adoptive, identify as women, whatever you want to call it. They gave a very large definition and said, or what we will call mothers in this study.
Got it.
So 200,000 mothers with kids 17 and under and an average age of 39 years old.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I mean, I do agree with the idea that usually when you hear about these studies, it's like at their 3 postnatal doctor's appointments, they're starting to ask how you're doing, which they should. But that's when we talk about maternal mental health, we're talking about the first 6 months of the first baby's life.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about that, and that a lot of the mental health support has gotten stronger for postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, like the idea of kind of shining a light on the fact that the story of you've had a baby and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to you, and now you're just swathed and bathed in joy is not quite right. But also now I know a lot of moms of 15-year-olds and they're not getting mental health checks at their pediatrician appointments.
No.
And they're probably not getting maternal health checks at their regular doctor's appointments.
Yeah, exactly. It's something we kind of think, I mean, clearly that is a particularly intense time, but do the problems keep going? A good idea to study it, wouldn't you say? And we were studying it. We just weren't doing anything with the data, aggregating it. So between 2016 and 2023, 200,000 mothers took a study in which there were 2 questions. In general, how is your physical health? In general, how is your emotional mental health? That's it. 2 questions.
Okay.
And they had 4 options: excellent, very good, good, and fair to poor.
Okay.
And going into the study, I mean, something you have to note going into the study is this is self-reported. So it is the people who bothered to fill out the survey.
Sure. There's always people who'll be like, I'm doing great when they're not doing well. And there's also people who might be like, I'm terrible because someone finally asked me and they're maybe not in mental health crisis.
Oh, that's true.
Self-reported.
That's true. And I was also thinking, like, if you're doing really bad, you're not, now let me get to this mental health study. You know what I mean? You're not,
right.
You don't have
You're
the
laying on the
bandwidth for a
bathroom floor.
question.
You're not answering a mental health care study. Right.
Okay. So knowing that it's self-reported, the study showed that the mental health of mothers in the U.S. has declined significantly from 2016 to 2023. There was a significant decline.
I can think of one event in 2020, 2021, and 2022 that informed that.
Right. So we'll talk about that, although this started in 2016, the study shows. So they kind of push back on that and be like, no, it's not. It is the pandemic, but it's not just the pandemic.
Yeah.
So anyway, the study shows that in 2016, 38% of the mothers who responded said they had excellent mental health.
Okay.
And only 25% said that 7 years later. Same women. Same 200,000 women.
Oh, it's the same people.
It's the same people. They've answered this questionnaire every year for 7 years.
Interesting. Okay.
And their mental health. So people who said it was excellent went down from 38% to 25%. Good mental health went up from 18% to 26%, but that's not as good as it sounds. It's because there was a lot of people who went from excellent to good.
Right.
They downgraded themselves. And people who rated their own mental health as either fair or poor, it went up from 5.5% to 8.5% of these same people said that their health was poor. So what about physical health? In the same study, it also declined. At the end of the study in 2023, 15% fewer mothers were saying that their physical health was excellent. I don't know if I've ever would have said my health was excellent, but if they did, 15% fewer said that, and more said that they were just good health. Now, again, you're 7 years older. I mean, I might have been more likely to say that my health was better.
Yeah,
7
I
years ago.
definitely, excellent physical health is in my rearview mirror at this point.
Yeah,
like
if it was,
it's what part hurts, not like.
right. So we're just
I just watched Mission Impossible, and Tom Cruise is running around. And he's jumping out of airplanes. I'm like, that man is 62 years old. Like, if I did one of those things for 8 seconds, I would not be able to get out of bed for a month.
Maybe he's already AI generated and they just haven't told us yet.
Who knows what's going on with that guy and what he's up to? But I did note that I was like, if I fell down once, I would have to take a week off.
So the physical health decline wasn't as like alarming as the mental health decline. But what was interesting about the physical health decline is you could see more clearly that disproportionately affected mothers that they call vulnerable mothers, who are younger, who are single parents, who are less educated, or had kids who are publicly insured or uninsured. Those mothers were more likely to report poorer physical health.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
We could do a whole episode on that. And it's fascinating that the bands that you see of poverty and bad health outcomes are just, if you lay them over each other on a map, they match in a really interesting way.
Yeah. So it's not surprising, but it is like we have to sort of circle this stuff. We have to come with receipts sometimes, right? Saying that this matters, that you're less healthy if your kids are uninsured. You're less physically healthy. One does not cause the other, but they go together, and it's part of a package that needs to be accepted as real.
Yeah.
But the other thing that was interesting is that the physical health thing, that was more marked in this study, that if you were what they called a vulnerable mother, you were more likely to report poor physical health. That was less true for the emotional and mental health. They underlined in the study that, yes, this is a significant, scary to their eyes drop in mental health of the women that were studied. But only 6% of the women studied overall had a kid who was uninsured, for example. So just having these particular stressors, which are bad, doesn't explain what's happening here, because it's happening across age groups. It's happening across all other kinds of demographics. Each one of these age groups, when you split them out, all reported much worse mental health over the last decade now, basically.
And is it the same for fathers, or is it?
What do you think? Let's look at the fathers. The study also looked at changes among male parents, because the male parents were asking this question. They did have declines, but they still did better than the females. In the last year of the study, which was 2023, mothers reported fair or poor mental health 4% more often than men did, which for a study is actually a significant jump, 4%.
Right.
So we're 4% less mentally healthy than the men we know who take care of children.
Boo.
Okay, so it's happening. And I thought it was really important to underline that it's definitely caused by particular stressors, which are definitely worse for some of us than for others. But it's happening to all of us, and it's happening more to us than to dads. So when we come back, let's talk about why this might be happening.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
So there have to be other reasons that this might be happening besides the pandemic. I mean, let's start with the pandemic. Crystal Schiller, she is the Center of Women's Mood Disorders at UNC Chapel Hill's director. So when she was asked about this study, why is this happening? She went to the thing we've certainly talked about before, that the last few years were a perfect storm for women's mental health, she said.
Including the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic.
Right.
She's basically like, this is the pandemic. That's what's causing the huge drop here. And I mean, we all lived through it. Anybody's been listening to this podcast, like we all swam through those shark-infested waters, right, together. She says that the stress of the pandemic kicked off a mental health crisis that has never fully recovered for a lot of us.
Well, I think I agree. And I also think that in 2025, they say like the tail is catching you, you know, that I think that we're with like 2023, 2024, we're done. We're back to schools. Hooray, hooray. But now we're breathing enough to really start to see, and I'll hear people say like, oh yeah, well, she was a pandemic baby, you know, during kindergarten and first grade. And now that class is struggling in fourth and fifth grade. And I think that we're just starting to really feel and see those effects that have been kind of lingering around.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we're starting to be like, okay, we're all better now, right? Just last night, I was on a college counseling call, like a Zoom call from my kids' high school. And they had all the parents on. The kids weren't supposed to be on. They're managing, I think, the parent stress. And they were sort of walking us through the idea that our kids' grades, that we were catching the tail end of the perhaps overly generous grading curve.
Right.
Their words, that had been put in place during the pandemic at almost every school, that like, party's over. Sorry. Like, you don't get an A- for showing up anymore. That was nice, but it's over. And I was like, is it over? Wait. We sure about that? We sure the kids are fine? Not that everybody deserves an A, but like, wait a minute. Why is my kid, like, why is that over now? Why have we called that as like, no more problems? These kids are fine now. And so we're going to start grading them tougher. And of course, everybody's question was like, are the colleges going to know that you've made this decision? We'll see about that. But I think there is a sort of like, nope.
We're done.
We're all done. We're all done with that silliness.
Yeah. And I think that there's a skills gap that's built in to kids who went through the pandemic in school, no matter what the age. Like, we had a year where my kids were not learning much, you know? And so everything in education is cumulative, right? And so I think that I see in my kids that their essay writing skills are not as developed if they missed those two formative years, that their math skills are missing pieces. It depends where it hits you, and that stuff is cumulative, and that it didn't make sense to like repeat grades and have 22-year-old seniors in high school. I get it, but it is more complicated than just like, okay, everyone's back to school and now you're a junior and here we go. Like, wait, what? Because I wasn't that amazing as a trigonometry teacher, as it turned out during the pandemic.
Right. And a lot of us had huge struggles during the pandemic for good reasons. And there weren't enough therapists
for adults or especially for kids. I mean, there's such a shortage of trained therapists for adolescents and still is. And then there's the matter of affording it too.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going back to what Crystal Schiller, the Center of Women's Mood Disorders director, is saying, that we were having problems and we didn't get therapy either because you couldn't find it or you couldn't afford it.
Right.
And that hasn't gone away. It's just sort of memory hold.
Yeah, it's just now part of the tapestry, and we're going to keep knitting, even though there's kind of a weird hole in the scarf.
What about this bumpy part, this weird bumpy part?
We're just going to keep going.
Yeah. But then Dr. Jamie Daw is like, no, it's not just COVID, because this started in 2016 and the downward trends that we are plotting started well before 2020 and continued into 2023, by which point, at least they're arguing like, well, the pandemic was over then, so it shouldn't be showing up. Like, yeah, but it wasn't over then. So that's
right.
That's it. So I buy their argument less on the 2023 side than I do on like the 2017 side, where we definitely nobody was worrying about a pandemic.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that we've talked about before, but what the study's authors circle are the increasing costs of housing and childcare and food.
Yep.
Present daily stressors that have really ramped up in the years since 2016.
Yeah, and I would cite from my own non-scientific research the prevalence. I think that social media has to be playing some sort of role in all of this, in terms of the pressure to be as happy as everyone seems online. Like, there has to be. And also the kind of feeling of fear that is constantly generated by pressures that may or may not be entirely, I don't want to say real, because they are real. We were just talking about this with Melinda Wenner Moyer on A Fresh Take. She wrote the book, Hello, Cruel World. And I do think that objectively, there are a lot of ways in which our kids are safer nowadays. You know, I was talking about my parents who grew up during polio and world wars and drafts and many, many very frightening things, but that the prevalence of all the news that we get, I do think it puts us in a constant state of anxiety and panic that is bad for our mental health.
Well, there is, like climate change is sort of pretty bad and pretty ill-defined, and I can consume a lot of content about it. It won't make me feel better, and it's something that I wouldn't have known about 100 years ago or 50 years ago, I suppose. Either, right? Like, you can consume unlimited anxiety about things you wouldn't have known about otherwise.
And I think that taking school shootings, for an example, it's something that's incredibly prevalent as a fear constantly for us and our children. It is and remains statistically very unlikely to happen to any individual person. But the fact that it is so random, the anxiety is as if it is statistically more likely to happen. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's the kind of mental fallacy of the lottery, right? Like, once you get a ticket, you're like, I'm excited about winning all of this money. Statistically, it's unlikely to happen. And I think that some of the fears are so amorphous yet personal at the same time that and there's nothing you can really do about them. Mm-hmm. And I think that combination causes a lot of anxiety and is really hard to deal with. And climate change is kind of the same. Like, I'm washing out my strawberry plastic holder, but like, I don't really control what's happening with the Earth's climate. Like, a lot of the things that are frightening us feel so far outside of our sphere of control.
I think that might be it. The worse it feels, like climate change. I mean, you can take small steps, and I do, and one should, but you're not changing the melting glaciers yourself. And gun violence, it is something I care about, and you should do something about it, but you can't fully protect your kids while they're at school.
Right.
Every day as much as you want to, right? You can't completely control, no matter how much you did. Or racism, like, let's solve racism. Should we? Yes. Is it worth focusing on? Yes. Can we fix it? Not today. But we can feel really worried about it.
Can't fix that one either. Fentanyl. You know, like, okay, maybe kids will experiment someday, but now there's this thing that's like, okay, it's totally Russian roulette. Like, if you get the wrong thing, you're going to try something once. And I think that that's where I find my own pushback a little bit against kind of grabbing those problems and perseverating on them or bringing them closer to me by constantly like doom scrolling and worrying about them.
And I think I did. I mean, so like the pandemic, 2020, it's happening outside. It's happening in my house. Like we had COVID in our house in March 2020. Terrifying. And it did feel like the more you consume, you need to be the most engaged and informed consumer of what we're finding out about this terrible amorphous thing in order to keep yourself safe. Like I think that we really felt that way for a lot of us. And it's hard to unlearn that. I think that is a habit that I now have, that I need to know what's going on in the world, sometimes 3 times before I can turn off the light at night. I don't, but I feel like I do. And I think that's a habit that I got that I have to maybe unlearn.
I think it's a habit, but I also believe that it's a biological imperative because my dad talks about in the 1950s with the invention or the prevalence of the atom bomb having been used in World War II, that they did duck and cover drills. That's what it was called. And there was a little song that was like duck and cover. And it was how you were going to respond to an atom bomb. And you were going to duck under your desk and cover your head. Mm-hmm. And as my dad said, they would joke, you're going to duck and cover so that you can kiss your butt goodbye. Like that's, you're not actually doing anything. But it's like, we're going to tell you this scary information and then we're going to show you the correct position to be in because people need that illusion of control. And I think that amorphous anxiety to me, and for people along the scale, these are much less amorphous the poorer you get. You know,
sure.
Like the prevalence of gun violence,
right.
The prevalence of disease, the prevalence of fentanyl and drug overdoses. And so I don't mean to say like, oh, it's completely made up and amorphous, but it is these tremendous fears that you really just don't have a ton of control over.
Right. Well, that kind of brings me to what I thought was sort of a thunderbolt. I was looking at a Reddit post that was like, there's a study out, what do people think? And sometimes it's like the randomest anonymous poster that has the best.
They get it.
Crystallization. So somebody, I can't even say who it was, because somebody was like, well, no, duh. Mothers are less well because their kids are less well. That's why this is happening. And I was like,
it's that old expression, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And like,
that's right.
You're always as scared as your most scared child. And
so Vivek Murthy said that in this, in the Surgeon General story. He said, we know the well-being of parents and caregivers is directly linked to the well-being of their children. He meant that we have to be well so they'll be well. But it also works the other way. Then when we see our kids becoming more anxious, as they all have over the last 10 years, they're the anxious generation, right? I mean, if you buy what Jonathan Haidt said in that book or you didn't, kids are becoming more anxious.
Right.
And so this Reddit person was like, that's why mothers are are worse off mental health, because our kids are, of course.
Right. And they do show in studies, right, that kids are struggling with much more anxiety and mental health disorders. And
like, how do you tell, we have kids do these shooter drills at school and then we're like, okay, go home, right? That's going to like seep in under the door. And we don't know if it's better for them to do them or not to do them, but it's certainly going to make them more worried, or climate change or the different things that they see us worrying about. And just the actual struggles they went through the pandemic too, and missed out on years of friends and learning things. And
that socialization piece, I feel like is really, really important in terms of
emotionally maturing away from your parents, right?
Yeah, that we're a little off on all of that stuff because we were home together for 2 years.
Yeah. So I kind of thought this anonymous Reddit poster actually had the answer. Like, oh, right. It's gotten much, much worse for our kids over the last 10 years in their mental health. And that shows up. So no wonder we feel the same way.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
And then, of course, we have to fix it, though, because we affect them. They affect us. We affect each other's mental health.
Well, and as we always say, like the very bummer answer for all things is that your kids are going to turn out very similar to you. And so, to the degree that anxiety about very legitimate things that are making you anxious is making you anxious all the time, like that anxiety is going to be picked up by your kids too. I think there is some solution, as we started with, that like figuring out your relationship to the world and your mental health is actually the most important thing you can do, because your kids are going to be most affected. I mean, we talk about everything, peers, we talk about pressure, we talk about college, we talk about all of these different things. But the reality of every household is that when you have healthy parents, you're some large percentage of the way to the solution. And that figuring out how to take care of our own mental health, to me, seems like the absolute top of the mountain on this stuff, in terms of, if you are well, your children will feel safe at home, and they will feel safe to talk to you about their mental health, and they will just feel safer in general.
Yeah. It's the whole ball game, mother's mental health, in other words.
It is. I think it really is the whole ball game. And I think that often we talk about variables and absolutes, and the variable that you have the most access to in this whole difficult equation is your own mental health, to a certain degree. I mean, it's hard to control your own mental health. If I knew how to control my own mental health, I would be a best-selling author or something.
This would be a really successful podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we would be really doing it over here. But still, I do believe that figuring out and focusing and making your own mental health the most important thing that happens. I mean, people have said before, like, 2 happy parents or a happy relationship in the home defines so much of your children's outcomes. And even a single happy parent defines
0
that.
unhappy parents.
Yeah, but that what is happening at the head of the home. And my mom would say this as a therapist, that when she looked at a family system, she would work to identify the strongest person in the family, usually a parent, and work primarily with that person. Because it's like, I need to get somebody in this household well so that they can lead everybody else in the household.
Let's take a break. When we come back, let's talk about how we get well. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
And now, how hard are hard things right now?
From the What Fresh Hell podcast.
Going to the grocery store.
Super hard, like a 10 of hardness. It involves all the hard things: leaving the house, doing something you don't want to, possibly running into people, and then carrying heavy things.
making dinner.
I mean, also a 10. It takes planning and energy, is complicated and lengthy, and at the end, most of the people at your table complain that it smells funny. Do not recommend.
Filling out school forms.
So hard. Definitely a 10. First, you have to remember to fill them out, and then you have to fill them out. It is just terrible all around.
Boarding a plane and going to a place.
Literally impossible. This cannot be done. We apologize for the inconvenience.
This has been How Hard Are Hard Things Right Now?
From the What Fresh Hell podcast. So do you remember Pooja Lakshman? We had her on for a fresh take.
I do indeed.
And we've definitely rerun it because it's a really good episode about burnout and mom guilt. So I'll put the link to that in the show notes. She has a Substack now. And I was reading it this week, and she told a story that I thought was very illuminating. So she is a psychiatrist, and she says when she was a resident working in the women's mental health clinic at George Washington University, we were taught that one of the most protective interventions for postpartum depression and anxiety was ensuring that new parents got 4 hours of anchor sleep each night. They needed 4 hours of uninterrupted anchor sleep. She was trained that that's how you keep them mentally healthy. So that would be the advice. So she would say this to her patients, make sure you get 4 hours of sleep in a row, and her patients would laugh in her face because unless they had grandparents nearby, unless they had a night nurse, unless they had help during the daytime to go back to sleep, they couldn't get that. Then there was the lack of paid leave. Then there was the hormones of postpartum. What she was assigning them wasn't actually possible. So it showed her, she says, that mental health isn't just about biology and pharmacology. It's about the social determinants of health. It's about who has support and who doesn't. It's about who gets rest and who is expected to push through.
I mean, 100% agree, but I also think there's value in saying this is the most important thing and not dismissing that like it
can't happen
for some people. But I do think that myself and people who are like me can tend to start the problem from this can't be fixed, like I'm not sleeping and that's the problem and it can't be fixed. And I remember someone said to me years and years ago when I first had a baby, sleep is the only thing that your sleep is the most important thing that happens. And if that looks like, you've got 3 kids in a room with a baby gate full of toys, put the mattress in that room and just fall asleep in that room with the baby while they're nursing, while the other kids are playing. Like, literally whatever it looks like, sleep is the most important thing. And I agree that there are many people for whom there may not be a solution to that piece, but I don't want to skip over the piece that's like, put that at the center as the most non-negotiable thing.
Right. What I wanted to underline about this is that she's saying mental health is not just there needs to be more therapists and there needs to be more available antidepressants. It's the social determinants of there needs to be more support for all women. There needs to be paid parental leave. There needs to be mental health is that. It's getting 4 hours of sleep, which will happen when there's universal pre-K, right? It's really about It's really about structure as much as we need more therapists, which we also need.
Absolutely agree. And you cannot solve your anxiety if you live in a place where your children are not safe walking to school. You cannot solve pieces that need to be solved on a bigger level. But in an age where those solutions don't seem very close by right now, like paid family leave, we're not about to change this year the society to fix these things, although I'm all for it. I do think that as you have to move the solution as close to yourself as possible in terms of what are the things that I can change within this situation. And sometimes it's just getting more sleep.
Well, that's a good point because, yes, Pooja Lakshman has a platform and this is her job and she is going to demand, she's going to talk about power and oppression and she's going to say we need to change these structures and she should. And thank goodness that people are saying these things. But you're right. That's not for you, Brenda, on a Tuesday afternoon where you just need to get more sleep.
Right. You're just you're washing out your strawberry container being like, I hope this helps climate change.
Right.
I mean, we've had many discussions on the podcast about things that we believe would help parents writ large that have to happen at a national level. And those conversations can feel really discouraging to me because it's on top of everything else, I'm supposed to advocate for national policies that are nowhere ever going to happen in the near future right now. And so I'm for them. Don't get me wrong. But I also want to emphasize, like, where are the places where we can solve these problems for ourselves?
I mean, I think it's stuff you can bring into conversation, because clearly health and what counts as health and what is wackadoo and what is actual and what really helps us be healthier and what is counterproductive. That's a big conversation right now. And I don't hear anybody talking about, universal pre-K or better childcare is going to help mental health outcomes for parents, but it is.
Right.
It needs to enter the chat. Like, food dies, yes. And then also, how about we pay our childcare people more? That this is a health concern.
Right. It's kind of the old definition of like family values. Like, what is a family value? I would argue that increasing support for mothers in every way is going to lead to better familial outcomes. And so I'm for it. But if you're at home right now feeling super depressed with a 3-year-old who doesn't sleep through the night, I don't know that my political musings are doing you a lot of good today on a Monday or a Wednesday or whenever you're listening to this.
Right.
And so I think that there are, again, just absolutes and variables. And like, what are the variables you can control? And I think sleep is a great example of that. I think that naming anxieties and making sure that the anxieties that you are overwhelmed by are real and immediate, because I struggled with this a lot when my kids were little, that my anxiety was so out of control. Looking back, I realized I had postpartum anxiety, and I had a ton of support, and I was extremely privileged and extremely fortunate, but I needed to do an exercise every day where I was like, is this thought real? Is this thought immediate? And if not, is it possible for me to put this thought away for right now and concentrate on what I need to do next? And we call this next lamppost from my marathoning days, where I was always like, I can't run 26 miles, but I can run to the next lamppost. And if you run to the next lamppost enough times, you eventually get somewhere. And I think that when I think about my own mental health and maternal mental health writ large, that you spend a lot of time in next lamppost mode, and that don't borrow climate change when you're just trying to get to the next lamppost, I guess, is what my advice would be.
Right. For that person. I think it's different. It's for different people. Not everybody has to call their elected official today, right? But some of us have the bandwidth to say, hey, this needs to change. This should be happening. This isn't being taken seriously. And so then those of us who can do that, and those of us who can't, take a nap, because that's maybe one of the best things you can do for your mental health is make sure you're getting that anchor sleep, which I just learned about today.
Yeah. And I think that, to me, the most useful part of the conversation is saying mother's mental health matters more than anything else in a family system. This is a conversation you can have with your spouse as well, as I have at certain points. Like, we have 60 different priorities about our 3 different kids and our families and our marriage. But my mental health is actually the most important thing that happens in this household, is something we're saying out loud sometimes.
Yeah.
Because we have a tendency, Amy has a wonderful book on the topic, happy to help.
Thank you.
That to sort of say, like, the smaller I can make myself and the flatter I can make myself to get out of the way of all the things that quote unquote need to happen is my service to the world. And I think it's so worth pushing back on that and saying, I am the center of these children's worlds. And therefore, I am the person who needs the focus of everyone's energy. It's not your children's job to keep you well.
Peel your grapes,
peel your grapes. No, believe me, no one listening to this podcast is sitting on a divan while their whole family feeds them grapes. I can guarantee that. I would bet on it. But making that a huge priority and giving voice to it and having a conversation, especially with your spouse or your partner, and saying, I'm struggling right now. And I will say, my spouse, over the years of many fights and conversations about this, has gotten better with leading difficult times with the phrase, what do you need? And I'm like, thank you. That's the right instinct.
That's a great place to start.
It's a great place to start. And I think that I wish I could solve the problem of people who live in circumstances that are absolutely horrendous for their mental health. But I think the best place to start before we change policy and make the world friendlier for mothers, which I'm all for, is what do you need?
Well, the thing that this study taught me that I'm going to take away is that this maternal mental health thing, it is happening for mothers of all ages and stages, and that it is something that needs to be taken seriously at all ages and stages. Like, we're finally getting there with the postpartum mental health. Okay, great.
Yes.
That's a great start. But the woman with the 8-year-old and 10-year-old might be having a really hard time also, and we need support for that stage because we're all doing worse than we were 10 years ago. It's in the numbers, and so we need to get curious about why that is, and I don't think it's one more well baby visit. I think that's a great start, though.
Yeah, and I think that we often say that defining the problem is the step that we sometimes skip. Like, oh, this kid is driving me crazy and they're doing this and they're coming home and they're driving me crazy. That's where I'm starting the story. But the story really starts at the school bus where they're hungry and they've had a frustrating day, and that, like, moving back and identifying what the problem really is. And the problem here is women's and moms' mental health is bad. Let's really define and think about that problem as the first step in creating better households. That I'm all for, Amy.
I want to give a shout out to Happy to Help since you mentioned it. So
Please
I have a book
do.
called Happy to Help. It came out in January. It just won an award. It won an independent publisher's book award for the best essays written in
Love it.
the
It had
last year.
already won the award of my heart, but I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear it's winning even more well-deserved awards.
Yeah, the IPPY Awards. So you can get Happy to Help on our website. You can get it wherever you buy books. You can go to bookshop.org to our What Fresh Hell podcast bookshop. You can buy it there, as well as the books of every other guest we've ever had on the show. And I'd love if you buy it. And if you have read it and enjoyed it, please review it on Amazon or Bookshop, or hand it to somebody and say, here, you'd love this. All of those things would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's one of those books you'll read it and you'll be like, I just bought 5 copies to give out to everyone I know, because it's one of those books where you're like, you should read this. You would love it. And young women especially, both of my nieces who are in their 20s, I'm glad they read it. It's a little late for us oldie locks,
Yes.
but like, give it to a young college graduate in your life or a high school graduate. It's a great book for that.
Thank you. I think we solved it as far as mental health. So you have
we're
lots of
done.
time now.
All set, guys. We've solved it. No
Lots of
more
time to
mental
read.
health problems, ladies. Thanks later. And with that, thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
So long.